What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another post-game show here on Mets Central. This is Mets Fan Reaction Game 62, where the New York Mets defeat the LA Dodgers in the third game of a four-game set by a final score to 6-1. And look, this sets up, with this win tonight, this sets up the Mets in a very good spot going into the finale of this series tomorrow, which, by the way, tomorrow's game is a 4:30 game, so that's at least a very big positive because I do not like these 10 o'clock late start nights, but it is what it is. We have to deal with it. We're gonna watch our team regardless, no matter what time they start. But I do like the 4:30 start a lot better tomorrow. But anyway, listen, like I said before, the Mets now with this win, they put themselves in a very good position tomorrow because, as you guys all recall, last time we did on the podcast, both me and Evan said that we would have taken a split in this series against the Dodgers, especially with this series being in LA. And look, a little disappointing that they couldn't come up with the win yesterday and go up to nothing, and then you would have put yourself in a very good spot going to the final two games. But it is what it is. So far out of three games, they've taken two out of three, and now you set yourself up tomorrow in a pitching performance that looks like you have the better matchup there with David Peterson on the mound tomorrow for the Mets, and then Landon Knack on the mound for the Dodgers. And also the other big positive is that the Mets, with this win, they now hold the tiebreaker and they now win the season series over the LA Dodgers because right now it is 4-2 in favor of the Mets. And obviously, with only one more game left, which is tomorrow, the Dodgers can't, win or tie the tiebreaker now. So that is a very good positive because look, if the Mets now, they win the NL East, and if it comes down to because obviously the top two division winners get a bye to the NLDS. So obviously if the Mets are tied for, let's say, the second bye with the Dodgers, and let's say that the Cubs win the NL Central and they hold the first seed, the Mets, courtesy of the tiebreaker, will now get that bye to the NLDS over the LA Dodgers. And also, if they end up facing each other in the NLCS, the Mets will also have home field advantage. So listen, very good positive signs all around from this baseball game today. And also the other very big positive you can take, and pretty much when you look at all these games, all six games so far that the Mets have played the Dodgers, they are very competitive and they are a lot closer than what we saw last year in the postseason, which that is a very good sign in my eyes because listen, even though like us as Mets fans, right, like we can say that series, in totality, it won six games. But really, when you break down that series, it wasn't really as close as the series going six would tell you because when you look at most of those games, specifically in the ones that the Mets lost, especially game one, game three, game four, and even game six where they lost 10-5, a lot of those games that they lost, the Mets ended up getting blown out. So the fact that the Mets are looking like that they can go toe to toe right now with the Dodgers, that is a very big sign, and it's a very good sign as well because listen, whether we like it or not, if the Mets want to end up winning a World Series this year and representing the National League in the World Series, they are most likely going to have to go against the LA Dodgers, as they are probably right now, not record wise, but in terms of maybe overall construction, and that's not even counting the freaking all the pitchers that they have on the IL right now. The Dodgers are probably the best team in the National League, and like I said, the fact that the Mets look like that they can handle them and that they can go toe to toe with them, it's a very good sign. It's a very good sign. But I mean, look, when you look at this game, right? When you look at this game, I think right away the big two positives you have to say is one, Griffin Canning, because Griffin Canning was excellent today, and this is just how weird baseball works, right? Because if we all recall the Griffin Canning's last start against the Chicago White Sox back at Citi Field in that series finale, Griffin Canning could not locate and he couldn't pitch well at all in that game to save his life. And again, like that's a White Sox lineup that is not very good at all. And then you go to this game against a very deadly Dodgers lineup with three MVPs in the top three, plus Teoscar Hernandez batting in the cleanup spot. And Griffin Canning throws six shutout innings, and it just, and was just cutting through that Dodgers lineup. it's just like baseball, it makes no sense. And sports most of the times make no sense in general, but that I guess that's just how it works. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna complain. I love seeing Griffin Canning go out there today and for for him just being able to one give length, which the Mets desperately needed, just how how the bullpen looked taxed in those first two games. So I love the fact that he gave you 6 innings. I love the fact that he gave you 6 shutout innings, and also the fact that his swing and miss stuff was there. He racked up a lot of swings and misses, got 7 Ks in the start. Was giving up a bit too much hard contact in the start of that game, but as he really settled in, he really started to give up a lot, less hard contact. He got into a little bit of trouble in the fourth or fifth inning just because he threw a lot of pitches in those innings and he was getting into constant battles, and he got into a couple 3-2 counts against some of the top guys in this lineup. But I mean, listen, his slider was very good today. His fastball was very good today. His changeup, which I really liked, and by the way, he froze Shohei Ohtani later in the game on that changeup. So overall, Griffin Canning looked very good. And then the other big positive was Pete Alonso, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs was the major catalyst of this offense, and that's just something that you like to see because, like we've been talking about before, the Mets need Pete Alonso to be performing to the very top of his level. And the fact that Pete Alonso went out there and he was able to, to give you those 2 very big home runs and drive in 5 runs as a whole, that was a very good sign to see. Juan Soto looked very good as well. Snapped his extra base streak, which he had 5 consecutive games of extra base hits. Couldn't get an extra base hit today. Didn't get a hit today. He went 0 for 1, but the positive was that he drew 3 walks and he got on base 3 times. So that is very nice to see. Juan Soto right now looks very locked in at the plate. So that is something that we've been waiting to see as Mets fans for this year, and the fact that he's finally starting to get in that groove, and we're starting to see the Soto shuffle in there. That's a very good sign to see. And also, I mean, look at the fact like I think it was the 8th inning, the 9th inning when the camera panned to the Mets dugout and you see Juan Soto smiling and flipping water bottles, with guys like Ronnie Mauricio, Francisco Alvarez, Starling Marte. I mean, listen, people told us that Juan Soto was miserable and he didn't want to be a Met. So I don't know, looked very miserable to me, but listen, I love seeing that Juan Soto is finally starting to find his groove a little bit. It's very nice to see, and hopefully, he could just keep, finding that next level gear and, ultimately get up to that MVP level, which we all know that he can reach. So, yeah, and then overall, quiet night for Francisco Lindor, but he's been pretty good in this series overall. So, yeah, I mean, now pretty much, guys, let's get into the post-game recap. But before we do that, make sure you guys always leave a like and subscribe on the channel. We greatly appreciate you guys support on the channel here, and, we want to keep feeding you guys content throughout the rest of the regular season and the postseason, which we hopefully see that the Mets will be there. Also, make sure you guys turn on post notifications as well, which lets you know anytime we upload a video or go live on the channel. So yeah, let's get into the actual post game recap now. So on the mound for the New York Mets, as I said before, Griffin Canning, and then on the mound for the LA Dodgers was Tony Gonsolin. So Francisco Lindor would lead off the game. He would be hit by a pitch. Brandon Nimmo would then hit into a fielder's choice. So Lindor will be thrown out. Brandon Nimmo then steals second. Oh no, sorry, my bad, guys. So yes, Lindor will be hit by a pitch. Nimmo would then hit a hard ground ball, which then went through the glove of Kike Hernandez. So that ended up being an error. So you had first and third at the corners. My bad, guys. Sorry. Brandon Nimmo then ended up stealing second base, so gave you second and third with no outs. Then Juan Soto ends up hitting a ground ball, which was a positive out because that drove in Francisco Lindor to put the Mets up 1-0. Pete Alonso would then come through as he would hit a 2-run home run to put the Mets up 3-0. Brett Beatty would then ground out, and then Jared Young would strike out to end the inning. Bottom of the first, Shohei Ohtani would fly out to Jeff McNeil. Mookie Betts would then strike out, and then Freddie Freeman would fly out to Jeff McNeil. So a very good 1-2-3 inning there by Griffin Canning. Top of the second, quick 1-2-3 inning by Tony Gonsolin here as Ronnie Mauricio strikes out. Jeff McNeil singles, but then Luis Torrens grounds into an inning-ending double play. Bottom of the second, Teoscar Hernandez grounds out. Max Muncy strikes out. Andy Pages would single. Unfortunately, though, no damage would be done here as Griffin Canning would strike out Michael Conforto to get out of that inning. Move on to the top of the third. Francisco Lindor strikes out. Brandon Nimmo singles. Juan Soto walks. So first and second with one out. Unfortunately, the Mets could not bring in any runs here as Pete Alonso would fly out and Brett Beatty would ground out. to end that inning. Bottom of the third, Dalton Rushing strikes out. Enrique Hernandez grounds out. Shohei Ohtani would then single to right field. But thankfully, Canning would get out of that inning as the next batter. He would get Mookie Betts to fly out to get out of that inning. Top of the fourth, Jared Young would lead off the inning with a walk. Ronnie Mauricio strikes out. Jeff McNeil would ground out, and then Luis Torrens would ground out to get out of that inning. Bottom of the fourth, Freddie Freeman flies out. Teoscar Hernandez would then ground out. Max Muncy walks, but once again, Griffin Canning wouldn't let that bother him as he would get Andy Pages as the next batter to ground out to get out of that inning. Top of the fifth, Francisco Lindor pops out. Brandon Nimmo strikes out. Juan Soto walks, but Pete Alonso would strike out to end that inning. Bottom of the fifth, Michael Conforto would line out to start that inning. Dalton Rushing would then hit a single. Kike Hernandez would then strike out. And then Shohei Ohtani, as I mentioned before, this was the at-bat where Griffin Canning just froze him. Now, Canning did get a little bit fortunate in this at-bat because the pitch before he threw that changeup that he rung up Ohtani on, he threw a slider, which when you look at the actual chart, it probably should have been called a ball, but it is one of those, and the old cliche thing in baseball where it's too close to take, and that was one of those sliders where, like I said, probably should have been called a ball, but too close to take. So, and Ohtani was pretty shocked that wasn't called a ball. But then, as I said, Canning comes back next pitch and then freezes him with that nasty changeup to get out of that inning. We then move on to the top of the sixth. Anthony Banda would come in to replace Tony Gonsolin. Brett Beatty would fly out. Marte would come in to pinch it for Jared Young. He would ground out, and then Ronnie Mauricio ground out to get out of that inning. Starling Marte would remain in the game as a DH. Then a quick 1-2-3 inning here by Griffin Canning, and this was a very big inning here from Griffin Canning because before going to the bottom of the sixth, he ended up finishing the fifth inning with around 90 pitches. And, we talked about it in the last prior post games where the Mets bullpen was, pretty taxed. So the Mets needed length out of Griffin Canning like they got out of Tyler McGill yesterday. And like I said, I didn't think that they were going to push Canning in that sixth inning, considering that, again, you're facing Betts, Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez, 1, 2, 3. But you got to give major credit to Griffin Canning because he went out there, he attacked them, he got Mookie Betts to fly out, got Freddie Freeman to strike out, and he got him chasing on a nasty changeup low in the zone. And then got Teoscar Hernandez to line out to get out of that inning. So, as I said before, and that would ultimately be Griffin Canning's night. So, I mean, I'm just going to pull up his final pitch line, but 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, no home runs allowed, and then, lowers his season ERA down to a 2.90. So, as I said before, a very nice bounce back outing from Griffin Canning, considering, how bad that he was in his White Sox outing. But like I said, baseball is just weird. Like, Canning couldn't find the zone at all in that White Sox outing. He was giving up so much hard contact, but then, he comes up against this very good Dodgers lineup, and it just, he's able to find his groove, and then is just able, to cut through that lineup. So, but like I said, it's baseball. It's a weird sport. But then overall, like you look at his pitching breakdown here on Baseball Savant, threw the slider 37 times, 4-seamer 30 times, changeup 23 times, knuckle curve 7 times, cutter 2 times as well. And then, when you look at the actual swing and whiff breakdowns, that slider was very good tonight. It was working really well. 22 swings, 9 whiffs. The 4-seamer, 11 swings, 2 whiffs. Changeup, 12 swings, 2 whiffs. Like to see that. And, also like I said about the slider, he was throwing that slider a lot in the zone. 59%. He threw that pitch 59% in the zone and got a swing rate of 82% on that pitch. So that pitch was working very well from as well as the changeup. 48% in the zone, so threw it a decent amount of times in the zone, and then 73% swing rate on that changeup. So he was getting a lot of swings and misses on all of his pitches pretty much. So like I said, very good bounce back outing from Griffin Canning. You like to see that. We then move on to the top of the 7th. Lou Trevino replaces Anthony Banda. Jeff McNeil flies out. Luis Torrens grounds out, and then Francisco Lindor lines out to get out of that inning. Bottom of the 7th, Tyrone Taylor comes in to replace Jeff McNeil in center field. Jose Castillo then comes in to replace Griffin Canning. And Jose Castillo would get into a bit of trouble here, but then he would, throw a couple of very nice pitches to get out of trouble because he would get Max Muncy to ground out to start that inning, then gives up a double to Andy Pages, hits Michael Conforto with a pitch. So first and second with 1 out, and at this time the Mets only have a 3-0 lead. And you're saying to yourself, oh, here we go again. The last 2 nights, the bullpen has given up leads late in games, but then thankfully And this was over the course of 6 pitches. He gets Dalton Rushing to strike out on a slider, and then gets Enrique Hernandez to strike out, I believe, on a slider as well. So very good there by Luis Castillo to just get out of trouble there and maneuver. And then we move on to the top of the 8th. Ryan Lotus would come in to replace Lou Trevino. He would hit Brandon Nimmo by a pitch. Juan Soto would then walk. And then, as I mentioned before, Pete Alonso steps up to the plate and then crushes a fastball down the middle, deep into center field, to put the Mets up 6-0. A big 3-run shot there by Pete Alonso. And that would also be a big home run as well, because before that inning started, the camera panned to the Mets bullpen, and we start to see Edwin Diaz warmed up, because the top of the Dodgers lineup in Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman was starting to coming up in the that next inning. So it looked like Edwin Diaz was going to face the top of the order, which was a smart move by Mendoza. And that's something, that we've always talked about with Mendoza. Whenever the top of the order is coming up, always use your best reliever in that situation. But thankfully, because Pete ended up hitting that 3-run shot, and which extended the Mets lead to 6-0, you didn't have to use Diaz in that situation. And thankfully, that's what happened. So now the Mets saved Diaz, and now he has 2 days of rest going into that series finale tomorrow at 4:30, which probably Diaz most likely is going to be used, unless it's a total blowout. But then Brett Beatty strikes out, Starling Marte lines out, and then Ronnie Mauricio lines out to end that inning. And as I said, because Pete Alonso managed to extend the lead there, Castillo ends up staying there to pitch the bottom of the 8th. But before there was a defensive switch, Luis Acuna would come in to play second base. Brett Beatty would move over to third base, and Tyrone Taylor would move into center field. Shohei Ohtani would then lead off that inning with a single. Mookie Betts would then ground out. Offensive substitution as Miguel Rojas came in to pinch hit for Freddie Freeman. Miguel Rojas would then ground out, and then Teoscar Hernandez would fly out to center field. So very nice there, and very nice 2 innings of work there from Luis Castillo. We then move on top of the 9th. Miguel Rojas stays in the game. Kike Hernandez switches from second base to first base. Tyrone Taylor lines out. Luis Torrens lines out, and Lindor grounds out to get out of that inning. And then Ryan Stanton comes in to replace Castillo and to close out this game. He will get Max Muncy to strike out. He would then give up a home run to center field. Andy Paz would end up hitting it, so that would break up the shutout. So the Mets would now only lead 6-1. But then thankfully, no more damage would be done, as Michael Conforto would pop out, and then Dalton Rushing would pop out to Luis Acuna to end that game. So as I said before, a very good overall performance from the Mets. The offense was solid. Like I said, my only complaint with the offense and my only gripe was I would like to see a bit of the offense and a bit of the scoring be spread out a bit more than just the 302 innings. But listen, at the end of the day, they won. I will certainly take that. Pete Alonso, like I said, big day, and then you got to give massive credit to Griffin Canning on bouncing back, and then you got to give credit to the bullpen as well for maneuvering to end up getting out of that game with the win. So yeah, I mean, that was the post game recap. Before I get out of here, because it is late right now. It is 1:37. I'm just gonna go quickly through your guys' comments, and then we'll get out of here. Will, what is going on? Looks like Soto's having fun and he's back. Yes. And believe me, I love to see it, and I'm sure all you guys in the chat love to see it as well. But some people were saying that Juan Soto was miserable and he didn't want to be a Met. Just saying. I think he's having some fun, and the fun is only going to continue when he starts just getting more results and hitting the ball harder and starts hitting more home runs and extra base hits. Can't wait. I can't wait for that version of Juan Soto. Two Cats, what is going on? A great win tonight. Canning was spectacular. Just want slight more from the offense. 9-2 in the last 11. Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, Canning was very good, and I agree with you. Want to see a bit more from the offense. Like I said, I'll take it tonight, but I want to see a bit more of the runs being spread out over the game. But yeah, 9-2 over the last 11, that's very good. And I mean, listen, if the Mets could somehow win tomorrow and then win this series against the Dodgers, and then you're going up against the Rockies, which right now the Rockies are hot, considering that they ended up sweeping the Marlins. Which, Jesus Christ, Miami. I mean, not only did you lose a series to the Rockies, you got swept, and this was in Marlins Park in Miami. I mean, oof, that's a rough look for the Marlins. Pablo, what's going on? Nice to see the Mets with more than 4 runs. One person did it, but hey, I'll take it. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we'd like to see a bit more of the offense be spread out, but when you have your top guys like there, sometimes you're going to need games from them where they just they take over. And this was a game where Pete Alonso just took over and put the team on his back and, drove in 5 runs. So very nice to see it from him. 2 catch, regardless of the average. Soto always puts up outstanding at bats. 3 huge walks tonight and an RBI, plus a huge homer and great catch yesterday. And he looked very happy tonight. Yeah, Soto's been looking a lot better. And yeah, also the fact that he made a very good defensive play yesterday as well to help on McGill. And yeah, he's looking happy, smiling, looking happy, which again I love to see. Ray, what is going on? Pete Alonso is going to get paid the bag if he keeps it up. Cohen's got to resign him. Look, with Pete Alonso, just keep on performing. Keep on performing. And look, even Steve Cohen said this last year during spring training, where he said, "Listen, I want Pete Alonso to go out there and make me have to make a hard decision." And he didn't do it He didn't do it last year because he had a poor season overall. Stepped up in the postseason big time. But look, he's having an outstanding year so far. And look, and listen, if he's gonna keep up this type of production, then yeah. If the money makes sense, and the Mets just aren't going to overpay for him, because of what's out there on the market, then yeah, listen, bring back Pete Alonso, but by all means, because I would like to see Pete Alonso finish career as a New York Met and then end up, seeing number 20 retired up there, with the other numbers, at Citi Field. I would love to see that, and also the fact that I want to see Pete, break the home run record for the Mets. So listen, hopefully, just for Pete's sake, he just keeps up this performance. And yeah, I'm sure him and Scott Boras are rubbing their hands together right now, because as of right now, it looks like they're going to get paid, especially if the market, favors Pete Alonso, unlike, what we saw last year. Pablo, yeah, I want to see Pete get a big deal. He deserves it. Listen, as of right now, yeah, he does deserve it. But, we still got a long way to go. Still have a long way to go. So he just has to keep it up. Brian, what is going on? Finally, an East-West Coast win. Yup. 2 catch. Jeff McNeil's been putting some good wood on the bat too, like what I'm seeing from him lately. Yeah, he's been having some good swings. It's frustrating with McNeil because he really doesn't have a lot of power. So even when he hits the ball into the outfield, it's not like it's going to carry, and most of the time it ends up dying, at the wall. So I don't know. It's weird with Jeff McNeil, but yeah, he is putting up some decent swings. Like, I can't lie there. Pablo, seeing his name on another jersey, it just wouldn't feel right. Listen, it is what it is. We all said that, seeing DeGrom's name on another jersey wouldn't feel right. And listen, like, it still sucks to see that DeGrom's not here, and the fact that he probably won't finish his career as a Met. Unless like he comes back and in his final year he ends up signing like a 1-year deal, like what we saw with Albert Pujols do, with the Cardinals. Which, listen, I would love to see Jake do, but listen, at the end of the day, it is what it is. The market's going to determine what Pete is worth. So, and like I said, if it makes sense for the Mets, and if, Stearns feels like it makes sense, and if Cohen is willing to dish out the money, which he probably will be, then yeah, like I said, by all means, bring back Pete Alonso. But, we still have a long way to go in the season before we even, talk about free agency. So I just want to see Pete Alonso just keep on performing and playing well. I guess you commented that comment twice. 2 cats flipping the water bottle was hilarious. He was the only one who couldn't. Keith was like, that's why he's going to pay the big bucks. Yeah. Listen, it was just great to see, Soto just having fun in the dugout. But yeah, that's pretty much it for you. That's pretty much it. There's no other comments. I pretty much said all I had to do on this post game. And yeah, so obviously, like I said, tomorrow, 4:30 series finale. You got Peterson on the mound against Landon Axe. So hopefully the Mets could, leave LA with a series win. That would be very nice. But look, if they end up with a series split, like we said before on the podcast, I will gladly take that. But I will not complain if the Mets end up winning tomorrow and winning the series 3-1. And then, they're going to end up going into Colorado and Coors Field. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. Like I said before, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe on the channel. We greatly appreciate you guys' support here on the channel. And as always, hit the notification bell as well to let you guys know anytime we upload a video or go live on the channel. But that's going to be it for me. Expect a post-game show tomorrow, and then obviously a podcast on Friday or maybe even Thursday night. I don't know. We'll see what happens with the scheduling. 2 cats, great stream, Matt. Peace out. Yep, thank you, 2 cats. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be all. That's gonna be all from me. See you guys tomorrow. Let's go, Mets.